by the power of the Infinity Knights of Care Clash, I will give to you the world of Inspector Spacetime. My name is Tony Lee. I am the writer of the Inspector Spacetime comic for Boom Studios. Turn as well, Tony Lee, so I do not wear the shirt, tie, and waistcoat. Panel, and we have a treat for you today. To my left is the showrunner of the Mary Sue Predicaments, the spin-off, obviously starring Mary Sue Brown, while an associate of the fourth inspector, Mr. Hendrick! You all know him as the man who has been working very hard for many years on the Inspector Spacetime restoration team. The man who finds the 1960s episodes and places them back into the public domain, Mr. Matt Turner! Who doesn't know Tammy Garrison? The creator of the wonderful webcomic Peace Mist Elderlies. And writer of the classic Hugo-winning Chicks Dig Infinity Nights, Miss Tammy Garrison! As part of the, obviously, Chicago Tribune crowd of people, and the person who will be replacing me when I stand down off the Inspector Spacetime comic, Mr. Elliott Serrano! Now, first off, as I said, there is a situation, and the video is a bit odd on this, so I'm going to have to do this in a really cat-handed kind of way. So I apologise for this. Right. This is Inspector Spacetime.
62.
Britta, you've done enough, okay? Why don't you go start a ruiners club? Oh wait, I would just ruin it.
Well, then I'd be doing a good job because it's a ruiners club.
You ruined my analogy.
Guys, look.
Find me, Inspector. Where have we wound up this time? The question isn't where, Constable, but when. Inspector, look out!
This is the best show I've ever seen in my entire life.
The television show Community, a show that has shown you guys the wonderfulness of Inspector Spacetime, a TV show that started in 1962. But we don't have to turn them all off. It's just so they can actually see this little bit of a screen. I'm now blind. What are we talking? Can we have the lights back on? Right. So it's Gene, he's the guy who runs Chicago DARSIT. Inspector Spacetime obviously was created in 1962, at a time when people wanted fantasy and science fiction. The biggest problem is Terence Country, the man who created Inspector Spacetime, sold it to the BBC but didn't think it would sell. So he sold it to ITV as well. The problem was both BBC and ITV bought Inspector Spacetime. Neither of them wanted the other side to do it. BBC obviously went off and went, screw you, and did some inferior thing called Doctor Somebody. I don't know. I don't think it lasted. But I think he carried on with the Inspector and did Inspector Spacetime. But the problem was that the BBC owned the rights as well. They wouldn't allow international rights, which means that only Hackney in East London was allowed to have Inspector Spacetime. For many years it was languished, it was cancelled, it came back as a TV movie, it came back as a reimagination. And only now, the Americans, through Community, know what this is. Here is another scene from Community telling you about it.
I think I can explain. Pierce's positrons have been negatized, creating anti-Pierce. It happens all the time in Inspector Spacetime.
Yeah, but Anti-Inspector had a funny mustache and was kind of rapey.
I don't think his positrons have been negative.
That's exactly what Constable Reggie said.
That's close, Constable Reggie. I thought those blowdowns had state rights.
What on planet Earth do they want from us, Inspector?
I should say what they want from us, Constable. But we...
Inspector, look out! Blow guns!
How old are you guys? The question isn't how old we are, but when old we are.
In your face, long gone, quick.
The first Inspector was in 1962, Leslie French, who was also known as the run-in to the first Doctor of Doctor Who. Leslie French took over and played the character for the first couple of years. He was replaced by Christopher Lee. Remember, I didn't like this, the internet. Christopher Lee was best known for his years because of the fact at the same time he was playing Dracula in the Hammer House movies. Often he would be coming straight from Pinewood to the studio to record. He would only have enough time to take his teeth out, and that's why he was always known as the Inspector that had the flouncy cloaks and things like that in his performances. He also had Aidan. Aidan was the Celtic chieftain's son who came along and played with him. The third Inspector was Bernard Fox. Bernard Fox was one of the most popular ones. Before he left to become a regular in Hogan's Heroes, he was known very much as the Intelligence Inspector. In this time, obviously, this is the first appearance of his arch enemy, the Sergeant, as well. The Sergeant, obviously, from the Inspector Spacetime Panel of Chaos Clash. A man who, like the Inspector, didn't have a heart. But the Inspector doesn't have a heart and needs to find things to fill it for him. The fourth Inspector was, of course, one of the most popular, Marius Goring, best known from A Matter of Life and Death as the conductor, or The Red Shoes. Marius Goring was one of the most popular inspectors. In his run, you had Horsebot 3000, who died. You had the replacement Feline, which not many people liked. Mary Sue Brown, the investigative artist, who obviously joined him and was left in Aberdeen one day. Some things never change. Marius Goring obviously spent the second half of his time started to be a bit weird because he started dressing like the conductor from A Matter of Life and Death, and they felt that this was something that they were trying to make the Inspector a bit more flamboyant. They didn't realise that Marius just like wearing Regency clothing. The fifth Inspector, of course, was Linda Bellingham. Very good choice, I think you'll find. This is a picture from the Blake 7 crossover that Inspector Spacetime did. Now, the fifth Inspector obviously inherited things like Feline. She did a lot of bouncing around. She was best known for the sexy adventures where her and her two young male companions spent a lot of time travelling around, and the air steward, who obviously wore a bit next to nothing. Then, of course, we have the sixth Inspector. Graham Chapman, as a sixth Inspector, was known as the dour Inspector. He wore browns and greys and didn't like multicoloured costumes in any way whatsoever. But of course, he also had Geoffrey. Geoffrey, the companion in Boy Genius, played by Rick Mail, who everybody hated. Geoffrey, and eventually Geoffrey died. It was very sad, but found him in down. But obviously, Graham Chapman was the one who had problems because during his run, it was cancelled for up to 18 months. No one knew what was going on, and eventually, when he returned with the seventh Inspector, Graham Chapman wouldn't return. In fact, I think at the time he had just done Life of Brian, he was doing some other bits and pieces, he wasn't happy, and so they went straight in with the seventh Inspector. Now, of course, the seventh Inspector was the Inspector where things started to get interesting. He was the first Inspector to wear the bowler hat. Now, obviously, I'm telling you all things you already know, but in the Children in Need special, where when they were inside the DARSIT, you know, dimensions in relative space in time, when they were inside the DARSIT, the telephone box that's slightly smaller on the inside than it is on the outside. In the Children in Need special, Space Evade, when the 11th Doctor meets the the 11th Inspector meets the 7th Inspector, the 11th Inspector informs the 7th Inspector that he wears the bowler hat because the 7th Inspector was his inspector. Of course, Stephen Fry only lasted a year because at this point, the money grabbers were there and the show was cancelled. It went on mid-season hiatus. And we knew that this was a bad thing. We didn't know how many years we would have to wait. But we had hope. We knew that something would return. And of course, in 2003, we had the TV movie. DARSIT in Westminster. Steve Carell wasn't a popular choice for the Inspector and had played a nightmare. But basically, I think personally that Steve Carell did a lot better with these Small Beginnings audio adventures than he did afterwards. I also didn't like the fact that they changed this sergeant into Claude Van Damme. Claude Van Damme wasn't right as the sergeant at that point. But of course, he did one movie and it went back into hiatus again. But then, joy of joys, Neil Gaiman returned as the showrunner, and we had the ninth Inspector, Mark Williams. The biggest story, of course, was that Mark Williams was doing double duties. He was also, obviously, the Weasley dad in the Harry Potter movies. This, again, is the Children in Need special, where Harry Potter travelled with the Inspector. There was a lot of problems after, obviously, Neil Gaiman and J.K. Rowling had their very public falling out when J.K. Rowling stated that it wasn't canon in any way proper. And obviously, this entire scene was deemed, well, effectively non-canon. And obviously, Mark Williams, also at the time, Mark Williams was the Inspector that brought in Lily Taylor. Lily Taylor, the young shop assistant, played by child pop singer Hannah Spirit from S Club 7. A child singer turned actress who became almost a kind of love interest. At the same time, you also had Captain James Haggard, played by Jamie Bamber, who of course the pansexual friend, Navy Captain, who eventually went off to join Peace Mist. Peace Mist, of course, being the anagram of Spacetime Panel. And of course, who can forget his other companion, Corey Williams. Woo! Again, plainly isn't it? Then of course we have the 10th Inspector, played by Christopher Obi, who also, for some reason, wanted to be credited as Daniel Landlord. We don't understand why we think there was some kind of thing on this. But of course, this was the Will They Won't They with Lily Taylor, and of course, in the end, Daniel Landlord went off to another world with Lily Taylor, while Christopher Obi continued. It was very simple. We didn't understand what was going on, and it all went a bit public in the sun. And then, of course, we bring to the final Inspector, Travis Fisher. Popular Inspector due to that 20-second clip that was shown on Community. The 11th Inspector was best known for his companion, Constable Reggie. And we all enjoyed Constable Reggie. It was just unfortunate that he got killed in that accident with the blowfish. But this is the Inspector. These are his times. The Associates, we've got a few more here to show them quickly. Feline, who obviously replaced Horsebot 3000. I miss Horsebot 3000. We have obviously Mary Sue Brown at the top middle there, from her episode in the Mary Sue Predicaments, where she runs around with 3 children doing bad things. You have obviously Reggie, no, sorry, Constable Reggie at the bottom, but above him you have Jeffrey. No one liked Jeffrey, we don't care. You have Captain James Haggard from his Peace Mist promotion shots, Lily Taylor in one of her action shots, and of course, Constable Reggie. So that, for those of you who don't realise, is Inspector Spacetime. Let's discuss it.